How do I issue ROEs, records of employment, as a US employer? A record of employment, or ROE, is one of those uniquely Canadian documents that confuses foreign employers. Whenever an employee in insurable employment has an interruption of earnings, you are supposed to issue an ROE. Employees then use it to apply for employment insurance benefits. If you are a US employer running a Canadian payroll, you cannot ignore ROEs or treat them as optional. They are part of the basic deal of being an employer in Canada. What an ROE actually does. The ROE is a summary of an employee's insurable earnings and hours over a defined period, plus the reason why earnings stopped or were reduced. Service Canada uses it to decide whether the employee qualifies for employment insurance, what their benefit rate should be, and how long they might receive payments. From the employee's perspective, no ROE means delays or problems with EI. From your perspective, failing to issue ROEs can signal that you are not handling Canadian payroll correctly. When you have to issue an ROE, you must issue an ROE whenever there is an interruption of earnings in insurable employment. That typically includes terminations, layoffs, and certain leaves where the employee's earnings fall below a set threshold for 7 consecutive days. It also applies when an employee goes on maternity, parental, sickness, or caregiving leave that is supported by EI. Even if you plan to rehire someone later or the leave is temporary, the interruption triggers the obligation to issue an ROE. Getting set up to file ROEs. As a US employer, you usually issue ROEs electronically through the ROE Web system. To do that, you need a Canadian business number, a payroll account, and the proper credentials with Service Canada. Many foreign employers lean on their Canadian payroll provider to set this up and file on their behalf. Even then, you should understand the basics of what is being submitted in your name and make sure there is a clear internal process for triggering ROE preparation when an interruption of earnings happens. Information you need to provide. To complete an ROE, you need accurate information about the employee's identity, last day worked, insurable hours, insurable earnings for the relevant period, and the reason for the interruption. Reasons are coded using standard codes such as dismissal, shortage of work, or leave of absence. Getting those codes right matters because they influence how EI interprets the situation. This is another reason why HR and payroll should coordinate closely whenever someone leaves or goes on extended leave. Handling electronic versus paper ROEs. Electronic ROEs are now the norm and are generally easier to manage. They are transmitted directly to Service Canada, and employees can access them when they file EI claims online. Paper ROEs still exist, but are more awkward for cross-border employers. They require you to complete and distribute physical forms, and there is more risk of delay or loss. Unless there is a specific reason to stick with paper, most US employers should embrace electronic filing. Timing and deadlines. ROEs have deadlines tied to the interruption of earnings. You cannot wait indefinitely to prepare them. The idea is that employees should have the information they need to apply for EI promptly. If you delay, employees can suffer financial hardship and may complain, which in turn can draw attention to your practices. Building ROE issuance into your offboarding and leave processes ensures that the form is treated as a standard step, not an afterthought. Common mistakes foreign employers make. Foreign employers often stumble in predictable ways. Some assume ROEs are only for layoffs and forget to issue them for parental or sickness leaves. Others think that if an employee is on a fixed-term contract that simply ends, no ROE is needed, when in fact it usually is. Another mistake is failing to track insurable hours properly, especially for salaried employees. Even if you do not track hours day to day for management purposes, you still need a defensible way to calculate insurable hours when preparing an ROE. Working with payroll providers and advisors. If you use a Canadian payroll provider, they can usually generate and submit ROEs based on your instructions. However, they rely on you for accurate reasons, dates, and any special circumstances. A good practice is to have a simple checklist that HR or the local manager completes when someone leaves or goes on leave, and to send that to the payroll team as the trigger for ROE preparation Advisors can help you with edge cases, such as employees with multiple contracts or unusual work patterns. Final thoughts? Issuing records of employment is not optional for US employers with Canadian staff. ROEs are the mechanism that links your payroll records to the employment insurance system and allows employees to access benefits when work stops or earnings drop. If you treat ROEs as a routine part of offboarding and leave management, set up proper access to ROE Web, and keep your payroll data clean, the process becomes straightforward. Ignoring them, on the other hand, is a quick way to create friction with both employees and Canadian authorities. If you want a practical ROE checklist that your HR and payroll teams can use every time there is an interruption of earnings, you can explore more at www.theaccountingandtax.com. If you require assistance with Canadian tax matters, our team is ready to provide reliable professional support. Please contact us at 416-283-8774 or visit theaccountingandtax.com for more information. And if you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.